Call the member for Mayo.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. For some Australians, credit is a totally ordinary, mundane thing. They know their financial circumstances, their credit score, their superannuation strategy. They know how to deal with bankers, lenders and brokers. And if there is something they don't understand, many of them have someone who can help, an accountant, a financial planner, parents and friends that are financially literate. For those Australians, getting into trouble is something that only happens with a significant life-changing event such as a divorce or death in the family. And they usually know what to do when that happens. But that's not everyone. Many people in our community, in my own community of Mayo, are not financially literate. They don't understand credit and risk or how to budget. And for many of those people, credit is a terrifying thing. They know how easily they can get into trouble. They've seen it happen to family members, to their friends or their neighbours. They have seen the terrible, enduring consequences that come from a loan going bad. They've seen people lose their homes, lose their rental properties, lose their relationships and their families. But they also know it's a necessary risk. There's no way that they can buy a home without credit, without a mortgage or a car. And sometimes things go wrong and you just need a loan to cover a few bills until you're back on your feet. For people who aren't financially literate, dealing with a lender can be stressful and anxiety-ridden. If they don't understand credit, they can't tell when they're getting a bad deal, when they're being taken for a ride. They have to place their trust in someone who may or may not be ripping them off. And if you read the submissions, the reports of the Hayne Royal Commission, you know that these fears are justified because many Australians were, in fact, being ripped off time and again. For these people, consumer credit protections are the only thing that can actually prevent this from happening. It's not enough to keep them completely safe, but it's something, it's some protection, and it's better than nothing. So you can imagine how these people would feel when they heard the government wants to strip away these protections. You can imagine how these people, my constituents, would be feeling frustrated that the government is looking to undo the first recommendation of the Banking Royal Commission. They don't care about macroeconomic benefits of growth or private net capital investment. What they care about is losing their home and their future financial security, and ensuring that there's some protection so that their kids won't be ripped off by a dodgy lender or lose their credit rating. I accept that there are complexities to this. The majority of borrowers in Australia are financially literate and they can handle credit well and don't require government intervention. They can access credit. Notably, Australia's household debt-to-income ratio has increased at a faster rate and to a higher level than in most countries in the decade to 2018. And as long as lenders act ethically, with integrity and decency, most people will be fine. But there are situations in which some people need protection. The policy change is that there is no silver bullet, not one thing that offers everyone the protection that they need. So we protect some people in the minority by strictly regulating products aimed at them, such as payday loans and consumer leases. But we don't do a very good job with these protections, and for years now, members in this parliament have wanted to see change and tightening of rules in this. Even just the government's own draft legislation brought into the parliament would be a good start. But at least right now there are some protections. And there are wraparound services such as financial literacy programs, counselling and zero-interest loans available. However, these are limited and they're not always easy to access, particularly if you're in a regional area. So I can certainly understand the efficiency argument against this system, against the system we have. However, I don't think the government's approach on this is right. In all honesty, I could support a bill where there was greater emphasis and protection and support and funding, but there isn't. This bill just rolls back responsible lending obligations and strips away protections for the vulnerable. It places responsibility for unaffordable and unsuitable loans on borrowers, leaving them with fewer ways to combat the bad lending behaviour we heard about in the Hayne Royal Commission. It actually beggars belief that it's the first recommendation and the government wants to take it away. It removes the ability to access remedies for loss and damages suffered due to unscrupulous behaviour, and implements watered-down reforms to payday loans and leases recommended by the Small Amount Credit Contract Review in 2016. This bill would allow an employed person to contract to pay up to 40%, nearly half of their net income every week, to payday lenders and consumer lease providers, or up to 20% if the person is relieving Centrelink benefits. Consumer advocates know what this means for vulnerable people who present at them needing emergency relief for basic expenses like food, because their incomes have been eaten up by repayments and then late fees on unaffordable loans. So I can't vote for that, and I won't vote for that. And I would really encourage the government to take a long, hard look at this piece of legislation and actually assess who this bill is here to help, and it's certainly not vulnerable Australians.